You are listening to Proof Text, a Glossa House podcast exploring Scripture and all things related to it. New episodes are released daily. For more information, check out glossahouse.com and subscribe to our channels on Spotify and YouTube. Welcome and enjoy.
Shalom, I'm Doug, and I'm here today with Charles Loder of hebrewtransliteration.app. And we want to encourage you in studying the biblical languages, especially Hebrew. Today I'm talking with Charles Loder. Charles, thanks for joining us on the program today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Would you like to tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, your interest in the biblical languages?
Yeah, so most people probably know me as the person who's talking about transliteration a lot. My background, I'll give you a short story, primarily went to undergraduate at Boyce College, which is the undergraduate arm of Southern Seminary. Had a chance to work with a lot of wonderful teachers there. Was persuaded to continue to do an MA, which I did an MA at Rutgers University with Gary Reinsberg. Had a great opportunity there to just do a lot of work in Hebrew, Ugaritic, Aramaic, all the Semitic languages. To say that, also that my Greek has greatly suffered over the years. After that, I got a job in tech. I worked in an academic library for a while, which was a great opportunity, but just with personal financial reasons, decided to get into technology, and I am currently going to be starting a job as a senior front-end developer at a web development agency.
Okay. Very good. So you've kind of got a foot in both worlds, the ancient languages and then modern computer languages and computer programming, right?
Yeah, exactly. My favorite languages are Hebrew and JavaScript, which aren't the two commonly paired.
Well, that's great. And I love the tagline I saw on a social media account you have, making the internet a more Hebrew-friendly place.
Yeah. Just trying to, good marketing, right? That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, we can definitely get on board with that kind of line. So what prompted, you mentioned the Hebrew transliteration guy. That's kind of what you're known as. And I know I have shared your website, hebrewtransliteration.app, several times. I make heavy use of it. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that project, kind of how it came to be, and then we can talk about what it does?
Yeah, when I was working in a library, I was also doing a lot of editorial work, a lot of freelance editing, freelance indexing. And there's, of course, publishers still often require transliteration. Sometimes they just don't want to typeset right to left text. Sometimes if you're working in comparative Semitics, it's easier to put everything into one script, which makes comparisons a little more obvious. So I was doing a lot of that work. I was learning to code, and I had to come up with a project. And I said, well, this transliteration thing is really hard because who knows how to put the dot underneath the H, or who knows how to put the little V shape over the S. This is really complicated. So my first project was I wrote a tool to do that. And that was the very first iteration of the site. It only did S.T.B.L's transliteration. While later, I was able to add S.T.B.L's general transliteration to it as well. And just as I've grown as a developer, this project has always come alongside me. As everything I learn, I tend to pour into this website somehow. So that's how I got started doing that. And like I said, I've just continued to maintain it ever since. I've had a few little community that's grown up around it. You've obviously helped with some input into things and have helped me with quite a few little challenges related to the accents from time to time. And so I've just continued to maintain it ever since.
Well, that's awesome. It's a great service that you have there for the community, Charles, and we really appreciate it. Would you like to just walk our viewers through this? If you're listening by audio, I would encourage you to check out the YouTube or the Spotify or Vimeo versions of this episode so you can see this. If you're going to go to the website later, again, it's hebrewtransliteration.app.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and bring this up here and see if I can bring up text real quick. Mention the community. What I find most interesting is it's actually not heavily used by most Christians I've learned. most of them tend to have a disdain for transliteration. So I've actually been able to do quite a bit of work with Jewish communities, since they often find being able to have it in a script that's a bit more familiar to them if they're not familiar with the Hebrew script, to be a benefit to them.
Right. Well, that's an interesting surprise.
Yeah. I didn't know who my user base was going to be. So we'll take a look at it. So we're on safaria.org, wonderful website. So if we go ahead in here, we're on the main page, which is just transliteration. So you can just drop it in here, copy, paste, and we'll set it to, this is go to S.T.B.L academic, and you can just transliterate it. Now, of course, if you want to go into these settings, there's a lot of different types. So this is academic experimentation, general purpose, Brill. None of these are endorsed by any one in particular. This is just me understanding their own schema. Romanio, that's another Jewish community. So they actually use Greek script. This is fairly interesting.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, and they have a very particular reading tradition. But of course, if you ever want to, let's say you want S.T.B.L, you can always go ahead and you can customize it. Let's say, you don't like you just like CH for head. That's all you really need. So we can just go ahead and, so we'll see, whereas, so Ruach, instead of the H with the dot underneath it, you can just use the CH instead. So you can customize it, do whatever you want.
That's neat. And you can also have, don't you have like a more simplified version as well for people that maybe can't even work with the diacriticals?
Yeah, so the S.T.B.L's general purpose, so if you go into their handbook, that's what this is using. So, right, so you can have that, the haaretz, the hayatu, hayata.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a little simpler, a little easier to read.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it is, I have to admit, it is kind of painful after you learn to read the Hebrew alphabet and get used to right to left to have to go back to this. But when you do interdisciplinary work, or like you say, certain publishers have different standards and so forth, this is incredibly helpful. And I can't imagine going back through and doing all this by hand. So thank you.
Yeah, finding all the little characters on your keyboard or trying to have to Google search for them and remembering, what is that little V over top of an S called? And it's an S with a HASIC.
Right.
I learned that from just having to Google it 20 other times. So this is the main module. And I'll go a little bit more into why I say module here in a second. And of course, we have some other pages. So another ability is sometimes you just need to just remove all the accents. I know that's probably anathema to you, Doug, but
Ouch.
Some publishers also require, you got to remove the accents.
Yes.
And this also has some other settings. So you can just, if you want to get rid of everything, you can even get rid of all the vowels too. Sometimes people want just the block script. We'll get rid of all the punctuation. All right, so you get just a nice, clean, just the consonant.
Sure. Which is valuable if you're comparing a consonantal set to another consonantal set, for sure.
Yeah, and sometimes the case in point, you just might need to make, this is what the word looks like without any points. And here's possibly another way it was pointed.
Sure.
And then the last module is the one you've helped with the most, which is by far the most different that I've had to work with. So this is allowing us to chunk the text, is I believe the term you use, correct?
Yes.
So right now your default is just after a soft pasuk and an you'll have a new line. So this is kind of a weird thing. So the /n is how you create a new line. Let's see, maybe after tifcha, we'll put done. It takes a little second and there you go. And now you've chunked the text into, I don't know if these are the syntactical units you would want to chunk it into, but this is just what we did.
Right. Yes, it's very close to what I would break it down into for sure. And still it's, right away, even with that setting, you've got some very helpful divisions to help people slow down and read it in chunks. So yeah, very useful. And I love how customizable it is.
Yeah, right now, so I think it only works with the prose accents very well. And it's actually, all the disjunctive accents too. So That's
Yes.
it's not fully featured yet, but we're getting there. And of course, you can also put this T if you wanted to put a tab. So the
Mm,
tab space will come between these two.
right.
Maybe not the most useful, but I'm sure there's an application for it.
Well, that particular verse, I have a dramatic pause there, so I'm like
Perfect.
ve'ha'aretz
There you go.
hayatat tohu vavohu and so forth. Yeah, awesome.
So there you go.
That was a
That's
fun collaboration. Thanks for
yeah, that was very helpful. That was a great learning experience for me. Just because this isn't again my forte is accents. I'm definitely more into morphology and grammar.
well, have there been any other, through this experience, just any other surprises, challenges, with producing
Oh.
this type of tool you want to share about?
Yeah, there's been about a billion challenges. So I'll start with I called this a module before. So this isn't just a website actually. So you have an input and you have an output. And what does that is something that we would call a JavaScript package. JavaScript is the language that it's written in. A package just means it's an encapsulated piece of code. It has an input, it gives you an output, and it doesn't affect anything in between. So that is all found here. This is open source, so this is GitHub for those familiar with code. This is the most common place people will host their open source code. So this is all open source. You can download it, change it, do anything you want with it. There's zero restrictions. The only thing that's a part of the license is that you give credit, that you keep the license in the code. That's it.
Right. Somebody could run this locally on their own computer and open it in a web browser, or they could publish it to a website.
Yep, they can do anything they want with it. No
Yeah,
restrictions.
that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the module. And here I pulled up an example I've done before of, you just don't have to have an input and output block. So this is all just placeholder text. Of course, none of this is real.
Mhm.
But let's say you have a text with Hebrew embedded in it, and you want to allow your readers to actually transliterate it. Well, instead of having them to go over here, put it in and output it, you can just have them click a button and inline give them a transliteration.
Yeah.
So the logic that does the transliteration can be used really anywhere you build a website. There's really, the possibilities are endless.
That's amazing. Very helpful service.
Yeah. So as far as challenges, there's been quite a few challenges. One of it involved building an entirely other module to syllabify the text. What I've learned is syllabifying text without having lexical information is complicated, to say the least. So you can see I'm pretty actively working on this one. I just updated it 4 days ago, 700 plus commits. So it's had a lot of work. And this one, so hebrewt is modern Hebrew for syllables. The JS is the JavaScript. I won't get too deep into the weeds of this, but basically it allows you to take a word and break it up into syllables and have information about that syllable. Is it closed? Is it accented? How many characters does it have? Does it have a mater in it? So it just allows you to input a text and get that sort of helpful information that feeds into the transliteration. So that was definitely one of the biggest hurdles, is learning how to programmatically syllabify text.
Right. I can definitely see here that there's a lot that goes on under the hood, and you've developed a very nice, clean, what do you call hebrewtransliteration.app? Do you call it a web app or
you
program?
can call it a web app, you can call it a website program. That's all the same. But the thing that really powers it is this, which is the module. And this module exposes a few different functions. So transliteration, which you saw, removing the characters, which you saw, and one that I used to expose to users, but I don't anymore, is called sequence. So not all Hebrew characters are sequenced the same way. You usually have to start with the consonant, but after that, you could put a vowel, then you could put a dagesh, then you could put an accent, or you could put the consonant, the accent, the vowel, the dagesh. That would be a crazy way to do it, but not all text is sequenced the same, even though to our eyes it looks the same. To the computers, they're completely different texts. So the sequencing module is used under the hood. I expose it in this in the module, but I don't expose it on the website since most people just don't find a huge use for it.
Right.
But yeah, that just allows you then to ensure that all your text is always done the same way of consonant, ligature, dagesh, vowel, accent. So it's always sequenced in that manner.
Okay. One of my Hebrew experiences was through a program that required us to type our answers in, and it was computer graded. And I remember it always requiring a particular sequence in that way, or it would be kind of wrong. So,
That's rough. Yeah.
yes.
Some developer did not sanitize his inputs, and that's a big no-no. Big no-no.
Maybe they can improve that in the future.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great walkthrough there, Charles. Thanks for sharing that with us.
And I'll show you the last thing I was working on. I brought up this tab. So I've been working on this one for over a year now, implementing Jeffrey Kahn's Tiberian transcription. It's still going to take a little while more to get it done, but after 145 comments, we've gotten quite down. And right now, my biggest holdup is the poetic accents.
Okay.
So, ran into a big bug there. So I'll probably have to rope you into that.
Okay. I hope I could be of some help there. Thank you for that overview. And I hope folks will appreciate, what goes into what I think is a very clean, simple, user-friendly interface.
That makes my developer my heart happy. That someone can use it and it's simple. That's the best feeling.
Excellent. Well, again, we really appreciate your service with this. Any other thoughts about things that you might like to expand on with it in the future, or horizons for other folks that you would say, maybe you're in tech and you want to help people with biblical studies, here are some things you could think about. Yeah,
there's a lot of work that can be done and that there is to do. Obviously, a lot of work is being done on the vanguard of AI. That's a lot of really smart people are tackling that issue, especially how to do translation using AI. So if you want to get into AI, there's a lot to do there. There's building data sets, which is always really important. The Hebrew Bible one has been we have some pretty good data sets on that now. But there's always more work that could be done. And, especially in biblical studies, a lot with the church fathers, there's such a huge corpus that people are still working on. Again, the Greek New Testament and Hebrew Bible have been pretty well codified, but there's still some more that could be done. And building tools like this, again, it's open source. If you want to contribute to this tool, I'm always happy to have people make contributions. If you're not in tech, just giving people feedback is really, really helpful. Like, if you're using Logos and something doesn't make sense, let them know. I don't work for Logos, so maybe their PR team doesn't appreciate that. But I guarantee you the developers do. They appreciate when something isn't working, someone can tell them that it's not working. Be nice, of course. Be nice, but
sure.
Feedback is helpful for us. Most of us are just sitting at our computers, typing away, not really knowing if anyone is using any of our products. So we appreciate it when people give us feedback.
Excellent. Any closing thoughts or comments today?
Oh, so many, but I just appreciate it. And I was just glad someone's using the tool. I really do hope people can get some use out of it. And especially the structure tool, that one's been really fun to use. I've tried to use it in some of my reading. I'm currently not focused on reading any Hebrew right now, but when I was doing a little bit more, it was helpful to be able to just take a verse at a time and just look at it and just focus on 3 or 4 words at a time and get the sense of those instead of kind of getting overwhelmed and just looking at one word at a time. And by the 5th word, I have no idea what I said on the first word. So it's been a helpful tool for me. Excellent. Well, I remember as a student in the earlier stages of studying Hebrew and seeing so much of the block text and just being completely overwhelmed. And so I'm really glad that this is helpful. Well, Charles, thanks again for coming on the program today and sharing about your work.
And we look forward to continuing to use that and seeing where else it goes from here, and seeing what kind of other projects that it inspires for others as well.
I appreciate it, Doug. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glosshouse can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glosshouse offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glosshouse.com today. Glosshouse, language resources for the global community.